and how that relates to contact. Because to say if a mass sighting were to occur, the stock market would probably crash, and a lot of commerce would probably be halted to some extent.
Yes, well, that's
So
exciting too.
yes, it is. And but how would you guys see that to not cause a psychotic shock of everyone, making the stock market crash? Stair step transitions into a better format, a stabilization, maybe best for everyone, because I see it as an archaic system that has served us up until now.
Yes.
And you have hinted many times at the evolution of our socioeconomic system to be more conducive
Yes.
of maybe that reality where it does support stabilization of contact that doesn't totally impact us in a more harsh way than that needs to be.
Yes. Well, first of all, you're talking as if you only live on one version of Earth.
Yes.
Remember, there are multiple versions that exist simultaneously, and based on the actions you take and the vibration that you stay in, you navigate yourself to the version that's more representative and reflective of what you prefer. So the idea is that there may be stock market crashes and so on and so forth, but it depends on what you do with them that determines how you navigate to the version of Earth that works for you. Remember also that you are in the splitting prism. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to experience the shift that way if you're in a different reality. Those that choose to remain in a more negative reality may still experience it that way, or they may not experience the idea of contact or UFOs at all. So you're actually really talking about a multitude of probability Earths, and it's not just one planet that we can give you a one planet answer for.
Got it. Well, that's really cool. So whatever dominant vibration what I put off is most likely what I get in
Yes.
terms of my own thinking of what I invest in.
Yes. And the idea of being a living example of what might be probably a better way, a more positive way to experience transformations and shifts can give people that are not thinking that way an opportunity to think that way by seeing the example in others like yourself. But again, all you can do is give them the probable ways that they could choose, but they don't have to. And whatever they do choose is none of your business.
Awesome.
Because you don't know what
Excellent.
their path is.
Yes.
They may need to go through a crash in order to learn something valuable for their path. So don't necessarily deny them the opportunity to choose that, but you can help them understand there may be other choices if they so desire to match the frequency.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bashar. That really helps.
All right.
And so as far as because of that stabilization of trust and knowing and that pure connectivity of really believing and knowing what you're really investing in, because a lot of investment people don't know what they're investing in. They don't really believe, it's totally speculative. But when you invest in yourself, in your knowing,
Yes.
that feels like a much more conducive, full connectivity.
Well, this is why we say ultimately your so-called economic system will actually be based on people and their abilities, not on the idea of a arbitrary symbol.
Yes, absolutely. And as far as that arbitrary symbol, I just had a curious question. What form did the currency system take place in Atlantean times? Was that gold?
Some of it was, yes. There were other forms as well, different kinds of gems, as you say.
Okay.
But sometimes there was a lot of trading going on as well. Quite a lot.
Understood. And was the first idea of currency given to us maybe by the Anunnaki?
No,
Okay.
not
So
really.
that came later on of our own devices.
Yes.
Okay. And I have a quick question. I love to meditate upon higher dimensional consciousness, as I'm sure everyone does here. And some things you've said about thinking about the fifth dimension and expanding our imagination and our senses to that is to think of everything as inside out.
Yes. That's
You've
one
also
way.
said that when you raise in frequency and you raise in the idea of dimensionality, you experience the previous dimension you were the previous dimension you previously existed in. You see that.
Yes.
And so merging these two ideas, this is coming to I see that and I've experienced that for myself on personally, DMT experiences of that pop and that transition
Yes.
of
Yeah.
maybe my pineal gland flipping to some extent, of going inside out.
Yes.
And so I know we have those experiences maybe in the transition of fourth density, but as we get closer to fifth dimensionality, those are happening simultaneously all the time, breaking
Well,
down.
yes, but do remember, you're not going to transition to the fifth dimension until you become a spirit.
Yes.
You can use energy from that fifth density, fifth dimensional reality, to upgrade yourself to fourth density physical reality, and even get as far as we have in becoming, in a sense, quasi-physical. You can use it that way, but you're not going to be fifth dimensional unless you're actually non-physical.
Understood. So it's representative of much more malleability of space and time as the idea of spirit.
Yes.
And
that's how you can apply the fifth density energy to the fourth density physical reality.
Got it. And this is it seems like as you deepen into these understandings of higher dimensionality, you gain more insight to the reality of the five laws.
Yes, of course.
Where maybe in the third density reality, they're not as apparent, but the laws get more and more apparent.
This just goes hand in hand with the physics that we've shared with all of you. You cannot experience what you're not the vibration of. When you raise your vibration, the idea of the recognition of the structure of existence becomes more obvious.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. And two more things, Bashar, that I'm curious about. Yes. The idea of maybe this transmission is called the infinite restaurant.
Yes, we will explain why when we get to the meditation exercise.
Excellent. Well, sometimes I think of the kids' table and the adult table. And there's certain things we have to do to learn manners and appropriateness to sit at the adult table.
Yes.
And maybe so we can have, the flaming skillet or whatever of fajitas, and that we don't burn ourselves.
Yes.
And so I see that transition as transitioning to be able to sit at higher tables with higher entities such as yourselves. But there's a degree of manners, morality, and ethics that need to be instilled in humanity to gain that level of maturity to be even invited to the adult table.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that again goes hand in hand with following the formula. Because as you raise your vibration, you begin to understand what is appropriately matching the vibration of those at the higher table, so to speak.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. For me, Bashar, this past year, I got really deep into economics and the stock market to the point where I segmented myself a little bit too much in that focus and made that a little too much power of symbol of abundance.
Oh, all right.
Myself.
Did you have fun going through that adventure then?
I really did. It gave me so much polarity to expand from and to so much more maturity. And I'm so grateful that I went through that.
All right.
And like you were saying, allow other people to go through that as well.
Yes.
For their own experience, then guide them to balance our symbols of abundance.
Well, in the future, we would simply suggest that you put stock in yourself.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so with that feels like the imbalance of the symbol of abundance of the market might have led into realities such as the graves. Am I wrong?
Such as what?
Such as, not necessarily looking at the organic, conducive nature of things, but using materials from the earth and just for their own devices and profit, and just going purely into kind of using and not giving back to reality in an extent. Because what I've noticed in the market is people that are too segmented in a particular way where it's making them really disassociated from an organic lifestyle.
There always has to be an equal exchange. That's the first principle.
The always an equal exchange is for an organic environment.
Yes. In other words, you have to give back what you take in some way. What you use has to be given in a way that you can give back and keep the balance.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we begin to become fertilized and more ripe, so to speak. And with the idea, I think of our world ripening to a certain point to get ready to pop for the idea of contact. And
Yes.
so um, you really helped me think about this in a different way. Instead of really focusing on outside people, it all comes from within. How I'm
Yes.
treating myself.
Well, yes, you can get reflections. You can get reflections from others that you can decide whether or not it's advice that will work for you, but ultimately you get to decide.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. And
You
is
get
as
you
far
get one more and.
oh, okay, yes, 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 yes. Hmm. For my last question, okay, this is just a fun question that I've always been curious about. So
Yes.
you talked about um, Ra and Tot being Ra, the entity that created humanity, and Tot, the entity that was given the task to educate humanity.
Yes, well, these are part of larger groups, not just assigning the entire thing to one being.
Understood, understood. And but these are not, because that goes hand in hand with the idea of Enki and Enlil, but these are not the similar beings at all. Do Enki and Enlil also represent multiple factions?
To some degree, they do, but of a slightly different group.
Okay, and were
I
these
said you get one more and.
okay? Well, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Bashar. It was wonderful to communicate with you today.
And you as well. Good day.
Look forward to next time. Bye bye.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. My name is Patricia from New Jersey. I have this wonderful artifact. It's either Mayan or Aztec. Here it is. I was wondering, you can give me a little bit more information on it and what it was used for, and actually how did they make it. Thank you and have a great day.
The Maya people are the remnants of an extraterrestrial civilization, and therefore the artifacts are usually connected with the idea of extraterrestrial energy. The Aztec civilization, in a sense, is an offshoot remnant of the Atlantean civilization, and therefore will usually be directed toward the idea of creation and destruction as a cycle of experience on your planet.
Hello, how are you?
Perfect, and you?
I am doing well, and actually I woke up in a very comedic and humorous energy today.
Oh, all right. Good for you.
Thank you. And actually, to start off with my questions, I'd like for you to share anything about comedy and humor that comes to you to share with us right now.
Humor is used very effectively to shift a person's expectations, and so that they will drop them and get surprised.
The element of surprise. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
In considering the title Infinite Restaurant,
Yes.
and in having conversations with a friend of mine about a recent experience, the following came to me that I'd like to share with you.
Yes.
Existence is like a buffet. All of the options are available, but that doesn't mean we need to consume them, nor are they all relevant for us.
Correct.
We can choose what we need on our plate in this lifetime, and in another lifetime, should we choose, we come back and make different selections in alignment with our path of exploration.
Yes, but you don't come back. Reincarnation, in a sense, can be an experience, but it's not mechanically what actually happens because everything exists at the same time.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. On the topic of shifting and refining our food or dietary choices,
Yes.
I'm curious about your perspective on emotional eating. I find that a lot of people speak about stress eating or not eating.
Yes.
But is there something we're not addressing in its fullness that you encourage us to do so that we move higher to transform our negative beliefs?
Well, of course. The idea of stress eating, in a sense, is no different than any addiction. You are attempting to fill an emptiness within you, a hole within you that cannot be filled that way. So you are looking for an outside solution instead of an interior solution of valuing yourself and appreciating yourself and understanding how to allow life to work to your advantage. So once you understand these things and can fulfill yourself in that way, there will be no more emptiness. You will feel connected. You will feel fulfilled. The stress will disappear.
So then would you say that in the form of stress eating that exhibits itself as someone maybe not eating when they're stressed out, that is they're imagining that whatever energies whatever energies they're experiencing, that they have the ability to choose to not take in those energies into themselves?
It depends on the person. It depends on the path. You have to sort of, again, take it on a case-by-case basis because there can be different reasons for doing it that way. But again, along the lines we were discussing, the idea is that if they do experience a stress because of an emptiness, because of something that feels unfulfilled, the symbol of taking food in may be contrary to the devaluing of their own being. Because to take food in for them might be, I will support this, and I will not want to support this, so I will not support it through the outside action of eating, because it's not worth supporting, I'm not worth it, or many other reasons they may come up with for not valuing themselves in that way.
Wow, it's really powerful. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to hear your perspective about the energy of the rainbow and the particular messages it is providing us at this time that may be different than it has in other times.
Well, for you at this time, in general, as a symbol for humanity, it represents ascension itself, that you are transitioning from a lower state to a higher state. It's a bridge, in other words, between one reality and another, through the idea of raising your vibrational frequency. Now, you do understand that from a higher perspective, and again, this is a symbol that works well for your present day and age, a rainbow is not a bow, it's a full circle. You're only seeing a part of it.
Indeed.
So the idea then is that by going to a higher perspective, you see the bigger picture, you see the whole thing more easily.
I love it. That's definitely been a theme for me in my life, especially since the beginning of this year, not to put any insistence on a specific time frame, but that idea of, we can stay below and see all the nitty-gritty detail. However, in order to actually transform, going above to see the bigger picture, the full circle, gives us the ability to be more of who we are.
Yes, of course, because you have more information. You are better informed by seeing from the higher perspective.
Yes, I love it. I find that we problematize or pathologize human beings or other creatures that do not exhibit the body forms we classify as standard or normal.
Yes.
Are many of those beings, and I'll say in particular human beings, who have different shapes and different expressions, are many of them often reflecting different forms along the spectrum of humanity that we need to learn how to perceive differently? Or are they also displaying to us that we have connections to other civilizations, extraterrestrials, and so forth?
It's not an or, it's an and there's more to it even than that, because each one has a reason for the shape that they have chosen to experience that could contain many different lessons and experiences, not only for them, but those that interact with them. So it's an and again, you have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. If there isn't in general, what we call albinism. So for those who are albinos, so this is along the, similar thought as the last question.
Yes.
I've thought about what they reflect to us, and I'd like to know from your perspective, what in general those individuals are sharing with us.
Even the generalities can have vast differences. So it depends on the generality that gets chosen. From our perspective, because of our nature, the generality that we will choose, which is not the only one, is to get you used to the hybrids. Because many of them are that pale.
And is it the same thing with vitiligo?
It's a little bit different. It's more about the idea of the union between two things. Between humanity and something that is in your mind not exactly you, but will become you. It is the blending of humanity with the hybrids into the sixth hybrid race. The change and transformation that, again, can be expressed in many different levels for many different reasons, but it generally represents the idea of transition or transformation in the most general way. And the revealing of that blending, the revealing of that change, so that humanity can respond or react to it however they will.
What is the energetic and or symbolic function of melanin?
Well, the energetic function in some sense is to protect you from the rays of the sun that are harsher to your environment.
Yes. Is there anything more beyond that spiritually and in other ways?
Of course, there can be. But again, you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. In a more general fashion, it represents the idea of the roots of humanity, the idea of those who were first Homo sapiens. So it can represent the idea of a beginning of humanity, a grounding, and a connection to nature.
Beautiful. Does your civilization use permission slips, or do you operate from the full understanding that you are the ultimate permission slip?
Well, both when it suits us. In other words, in a sense, though we understand the idea that we are always the ultimate permission slip, we can sometimes use permission slips in a variety of ways for enjoyment, for the idea of serving a certain purpose. For example, in a sense, interacting with all of you in the way that we do is a kind of permission slip. Because we have to use that permission slip in order for us to make sense to you. So it serves a purpose to do so sometimes.
Okay, beautiful. Kachina spirits. So are they similar to, from your perspective, your understanding of what in the Yoruba tradition and culture, and the Yoruba are specific tribe in West Africa, we have in our indigenous practice a term called irumole, which are beings of light. They're interdimensional, come from different places. Some people confuse them with orisha, but the orisha are more like elevated human beings. So I would say the irumole are more energetic, and we call them deities, but they're energies that manifest in different elements of nature, archetypes, and so forth. So do you find that the Kachina and the irumole are the same, but from just different perspectives, or are they completely different beings?
They're not completely different, but they do share certain similar qualities, but they're not exactly the same. There is some overlap.
Okay. I have questions on specific creatures, if it's all right to ask.
We'll begin and we'll see how much the timing will work in that direction.
Okay. So I'll say the three then: jaguar, coyote, and bats.
The jaguar and the coyote have more similarity in the sense that the coyote is symbolic of rapid change in an unexpected way, or what you call trickster energy. The jaguar is more connected to the idea of the power of nature in a certain way that is usually represented in certain cultures by the idea of the alebrije. You understand this?
I don't know that term.
It's kind of a chimeric creature that is mostly represented by the body of a jaguar, but contains other animal elements, such as wings or claws or what have you, that represent the true power underlying the connectivity within nature.
Okay.
The idea of bats is more a type of messenger that is similar in a way to the idea of birds, but more geared toward the idea of deeper mysteries that have to do with the inner regions of the soul.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Will that do?
For that question, yes. And do I have enough time to ask one more question?
Well, that was a question, so I guess you just used up your time.
Okay. I will ask another question. Sound healing, or sound in general.
Yes.
For any individuals who work primarily through sound, or as musicians or whatever other profession we choose, are we connecting to specific civilizations or dimensions, or multitudes of them?
It depends. Yes, you can. All of the above. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bashar.
Good day.
Good day.